Welcome to Resume Well. We're exposing the intersection of wellness, woo, and work. We've been told that the antidote to professional burnout is personal wellness, and sometimes that means confronting our inner skeptic and exploring the taboo anyway. This season, we're all about putting our intuition to work at work. Welcome, guys, to today's episode. We are very excited to have Alessandra Veronesi as our guest. One, such a beautiful name, and two, she has such a cool story. So she is on a heartfelt mission to uplift spirits and spread joy. She is the author of A New Banana, Unpeel Yourself and Elevate Your Relationships, a book that offers readers a path to feeling good, finding inner peace, and rediscovering the world through the lens of various relationships, be it one with yourself, others, or in a romantic context. Alessandra's journey to authorship includes not only her insightful writing, but also guided meditations and life-enhancing perspectives that helped her navigate through the pandemic. So something we can all definitely relate to. And the book is definitely a labor of love. It's aimed at bringing relief, hope, and delight into people's lives. So Alessandra was formerly fully entrenched in the corporate world, and she made a bold decision to resign from her full-time job and dedicate herself entirely to her new venture. And other than that, she has just a really cool, geographical story. She was born in Milan and raised in a blend of cultures from Northern Italy, New Jersey, California, and France. And she has carved out a super successful career for herself, and we are so excited to learn all about it. Alessandra, welcome to Resume.
Thank you, Courtney. Wow, that's such a beautiful intro. I feel like I should take some of it for next.
You can have it. I'll send it to you. But yeah, it was actually fun writing it because I was like, I don't even know what to focus on because you have such a cool background and it's just really diverse and interesting. So I do like to start off by asking everybody, if you're at a dinner party, Alessandra, and I had this vision of you in Italy at this really beautiful dinner party, drinking amazing Italian wine. So if you were there and somebody came up and asked you, Alessandra, what do you do? How would you respond?
I help others find themselves so they no longer need someone.
And how would somebody usually respond to that?
I suppose they may say something along the lines of, and how do you do that? And to that, I would say, for every side of a diamond, there are techniques and modalities, and some certain ones stick with a person's frequency at the time they are hearing it. But very often it's a journey of exploration and self-discernment in terms of what is resonating and what is working for someone's unique journey. Nobody can tell anyone what works. The real strengths come from having an illuminating moment that makes sense exactly for you in that moment. And I was blessed and I was lucky to receive the modality and the technique that really unlocked my discovery of myself and connection and purpose. Or I would say we're always in purpose when we're doing certain things that make us feel in flow. More clearly define what it would be to feel that full time while I'm working versus just in certain moments on the job, which I have really good experiences as well working in corporate. I just happen to be suffering in my life during those years. So sometimes we correlate our job dissatisfaction with the place because we externalize blame. But really, it's all an inner journey. And if we were feeling in peace with ourselves, we would not be attracting chaotic situations around us. Perhaps we wouldn't have attracted that job to begin with. Nobody's faulting anyone for the experience they're having. Fairness is fairness and unfairness is also unfair. So I guess what I would say is it would be like a trial and heuristics. The important thing is to opt in and have the intention and recognize that you're not in this alone, that there's so much support, both person to person and also dimensionally. You can really receive if you open up a channel to receive from your higher self or any spirit guides that might be coming through. And even if you don't fully believe in that, then call it synchronicity. Call it whatever side effect you want to alignment. And like I said, sometimes people use a round key, sometimes they use a square key, sometimes they need something else. And at some point, something unlocks and opens up the stream of awareness. And once that opens, then it's just about learning the language and decoding the signs and understanding when you're in integrity with yourself or not. It's all with you.
I want to dive into a bunch of stuff that you just said. So, but first, I do want to give just a foundation of what led you to where you are now. So you were working in corporate. Can you tell us a little bit about what your job was in corporate? And why don't we start there? Yeah. So what were you doing in corporate?
So the most recent role that I had right before I embarked on this journey, I was head of marketing for a US-based company in the private equity sector. Prior to that, I was heading sales for a software company. Prior to that, I was working in wealth management in London. With my early years following college were really just tried and true path. So I started out in data analytics. I would say for me, my career was a jungle gym. So I tried product management. I worked in communications. I got to have some really incredible experiences from a business perspective, and I got to see how a large company runs. My career basically spans across 15 years. I would say towards the end, I was much more intrigued and gravitating towards marketing and sales. And then I started off more as project management, data analytics, and product management stuff.
Okay, cool. What did you study in school? Just in case someone is listening and they're like, okay, well, how did she kind of decide to go down that path?
I double majored in communication and Spanish and majored in Italian. So it was actually like a pretty open-ended.
That's good. Yeah, that's good to know, because there are some of those majors, like if anyone's listening who is going into college or they're in college and they're like, what do I major in? If you're not entirely sure exactly what you want to do, those majors like communications is such a great example. They're so useful and open-ended. So you don't really pigeonhole yourself into anything. You kind of give yourself room to explore afterwards, which is great. So after you found marketing and sales and in your last position, what prompted you to leave and kind of go off on your own and write this book and do what you do now?
I would say for the majority of my working years, I was very much motivated by external factors. So this was great in temporary situations. So I very much enjoyed the status, the feeling of safety, the ability, obviously, to predict my financial well-being on a consistent basis. At the same time, I was lacking internally the confidence to feel good without those things. And so I wasn't being fully connected to myself, I would say. So when things were going well at work, I was doing well. Or when other things in my external life were going well, I was doing well. Once one of the parts would fall, then I would not feel something. And for the majority of my journey, I felt like something was missing. So if I was in company, I was okay. And if I was alone, I would be like, okay, what do I do with myself? And so fast forward to COVID, actually, when I was in full lockdown, because in Italy, it was quite aggressive.
Yeah, that was one of the first hotspots, right?
Yeah, it was really intense. I remember the conference calls we would have with our colleagues. Everybody sounded like they were going crazy, just because it was really intense. And I remember one day, I could not stand being alone with myself. So pins and needles, absolute crazy feeling. I go into it in the book a little bit. I would say that it was maybe the harshest moment in my life with myself, because I was blessed not to have to worry about material, like food and shelter. I had all those things, but I had just me. And now that sounds like a heaven, but back then. And so I even called the police. I was really freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I would do something really silly. And a friend of mine mentioned to me I should try meditating. And I had tried before and I didn't quite resonate with it. It felt like a waste of time. And at that point, though, I was receptive to it because I had time. And it felt better than being alone, having someone guide you in a moment. And so it hit me at the right time. Like I said before, the right thing came to me at the right moment. Something incredible happened the first time I did it. I didn't hate it. And that was already big because I actually I started learning from this modality, how to spend time with myself. Fast forward, I did it every day for an hour and started to really feel what it was to love myself.
That's a long time to start with.
Yeah, well, it was a live. So sometimes it would go 45 minutes, sometimes an hour.
Okay.
I was a person who was really dedicating every morning to really helping people heal during this time. And it was just a blessing to encounter her meditation. Within a week, I felt this incredible change inside of me where all this light went through my body and it felt like an infinity within a moment. And it also felt like I have wasted so much money on therapy because this is what I needed to feel 15 years ago. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so then, of course, in the same way that you try an incredible food, you want to tell everybody about it. I was like, wow. I started writing out my new perspective because new perspectives were downloading and new ways of seeing things from a healthier point of view, from a place of connection, of calm and flow. And of course, it's a journey that's ongoing forever. But at the time, it was such a stark difference. I started sharing the meditations with friends. They liked them. And then I ended up, for my own creative outlet, wrote out about 7, and also like rearranging my thought process. I wrote out 72 meditations. And then a year later, after at a retreat, like a wellness retreat, I met this energy healer and she listened to one of them and she said, "You have 72 of these?" And I said, "Yes, matter of fact."
"Yes, I do."
And she was like, "You need to write a book. Like you have a book in you." And so we did a lot of energy work. And so began my spiritual university. And from there on, I just started learning more and more how to deeply connect, how to understand my own voice. And so I elaborated on the meditations, which then became more of a structured guidebook with really good intentions and like some energetic activation in the background. It was blessed by a shaman during ceremony. There's some stuff going on behind the book, which I hope it trickles out. And then I continued to put this project together as I was working full time. But what happened was I felt at a certain point that my time was being wasted. Like, it's okay to write PowerPoints and get a client and everything. But I felt this feeling inside of me like this needs to end soon because there's so much more that I could be doing right now at this time. I could be helping people. I could be giving people. I could be sharing. I could be doing something.
Yeah.
But I did battle with that for a couple of years. I think some people are going through that as well. They know they want to do something. You kind of got to stick it through. I waited until I was able to have some finances together so that I could manage the leap.
Yeah, but I think that's smart. And I think that is a really important point because I think you're right. I think a lot of people do find themselves in that scenario where it's great. Like they can find some level of purpose in what they're doing day to day, making money. But there's also usually something going on like a side project or a side passion, that they would love that to be their main thing. And I think that question of like, how do I do that? Do I ever do it really like full on? And I think what you're saying about sticking it out and creating that financial cushion takes away a lot of the risk because the main risk is what if I can't support myself, right? Along with other societal comments and whatnot. But mainly, I think people immediately go to that financial security. So I think it's important to know that if it's something that's really in you, and like you said, that your energy healer was like, you have a book in you. So if it's something that you really feel is in you, it will come out, right? Like it's hard to keep that in. So whether or not that's on the side while you're working, while you create that little nest egg for yourself, or if you are cool with like the risk, then go for it. But I love that you mentioned that because I think a lot of people kind of romanticize the idea of like, go away corporate and going on to their own thing. And it's like really exciting and romantic and all the things. But I love that you had kind of like a very practical approach to it. So thank you for sharing that. And I have so many other questions, but I want to continue. I want to hear the rest of your story.
Well, yeah, no. So everything you're saying is exactly resonating and it was difficult. And I think it felt like when you are in a lazy pool, but you're swimming in the other direction. So every day showing up, you're like,
I love that analogy.
You're like, I need to swim that way, but I know I want to go this way.
But it's like not strong enough that you're like thrashing. It's just like annoying enough that it's hard, right?
Like, I don't want to write these KPIs out. Like I want to play with the realms of my authentic expression. And for example, or have to take an hour and the force like out. Or it depends on everybody's journey. Everybody's is different. But I had a really high curve where I was just like so positive all the time. I'm a positive person, but I was like beyond. And so in my workplace, I'd be like, it's going to be fantastic. Everything's going to align. And like, everybody was like, stop. But in the end, whatever is aligned with your truest expression, if you're doing it from your heart, you're going to be somehow held. You just have to know the signs. Coming from a corporate background, a huge adjustment, which many people may identify with, is it can feel like I always felt like I was really good at working for other people, like great at working for other people. But anytime I had to do something for myself, it would be like at the bottom of the pile, or I would somehow not be motivated, or it would be difficult for me to clarify what my goals were. So there is like a period of integration as well, where I was working for a company in California from Italy. So I had mornings to myself basically until early afternoon. And that allowed me also to transition into a place where I could become more and more comfortable to have my own identity in a way where I'm not working for someone. I am me, and then I am the product. And then what's coming out is like a reflection of my energy. And that can take some time. Like some really amazing people that I know today who are so good at their jobs fear leaving or trying something new because they don't see how incredible those skills would be for themselves. So there's a little bit of that playing in when you make that change, at least for my story. And now it's kind of full circle because now I've been speaking at different companies and doing workshops with employees, because in the end, it's not the company. You might have a journey and then rediscover that you're happy in a stable job, and that's okay too.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's not always, if you don't like your job, then you have to go out and be an entrepreneur. Like, that's not always the answer, right? Like, some people are actually like really good at working in a team and working like as kind of like like right-hand man or whatever you want to call it. Like, not everybody is cut out. I don't want to say cut out, but not everybody would enjoy being an entrepreneur. Like, so I want to talk about a couple of things that you mentioned a couple times. So one of them is the signs and synchronicity of the universe, right? And it's so funny that you bring that up, because I was actually I was talking to somebody about this, and then I was listening to a whole podcast about it. And then I went on this whole like rabbit hole the last like couple months, like looking into this. And I was like, what is the difference between a coincidence and synchronicity? How does someone know if it is a sign? How does someone know if it's just like a random thing that's happening and you're assigning it as a sign? So can you discuss that a little bit? So you mentioned like I was getting these signs, and if someone is wondering what that looks like, a sign from the universe, because sounds great. And I do feel like personally I've had that happen. But can you explain how they either specifically came to you or what it means just in general?
Yeah, sure. I can give a couple of examples that have just come to mind. So, I mean, the simplified answer is I don't believe in coincidences. I do understand from a human perspective that sometimes we can, if one is prone to overthinking, when do you stop? Like, it's 6:33 right now. Yeah, for me, am I going to look it up? But like angel number, like I would sit here all day, like constantly deciphering things that could be arbitrary. But if there's something that speaks to you, like if you have some sort of a feeling to resonate with something that has happened in your day, then that's you speaking to yourself. And there are ways through kinesiology, which is a totally different topic, but people are welcome. If anybody wants, I have a guide for that, which ways to understand like what your body / your soul is trying to tell you. So you ask yes or no answer questions, and you're able to kind of further narrow down, like, is this me wanting it to be a sign, or is this a real sign? Or things like these kinds of questions can be very easy to, when you start understanding how to speak with your body and receive answers, can be like super efficient. And then moving forward, you ask less and less, but you know that it's an available option. And sometimes I still refer back to kinesiology with big decisions to make sure that I'm aligned with my soul. But to give you an example of like a clear sign. Yeah. I was in New York and I had booked a studio to do an interview, to interview myself. I had to self-brand. And it was COVID. It was like 2021. So things were quite closed in New York City area. And I also had never done a television interview. So I didn't know that you needed professional makeup. I didn't have a US cell phone. I couldn't really call. I had to use my friends' cell phones back and forth. And it was the day before and I needed to book a makeup artist. And it was Friday at 7 p.m. Sephora in New York City wasn't available. Like nothing was available. And I said, okay, fine. And it was Halloween weekend. So we had to go out in our costume. Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Let's just do it. And we go out and have dinner and I'm like, whatever, I'll just do my own makeup and I'll just be me and connect with myself and my heart and everything will work. And we get to the party, the place we went to. And the first person that I met was like this girl in like a popcorn costume. And she was like a popcorn machine.
Nice.
Like very creative. She was a friend of a friend. We were all just getting our first drink. And I was like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm a makeup artist. And I was like, okay. Like, yeah. I do like airbrushing and like television makeup. And I was like, excuse me, are you free tomorrow morning? Because I have like a 2 p.m. like TV studio situation going on. So I would say that was a sign because he was like a synchronistic. It was like the classic situation of surrender, trust, receive, and watch the alignment move forward and then validate what you're doing to begin with.
Okay.
And so that was...
So what would that be a sign for, I guess, is a question that I think a lot of people to keep doing what you're doing. Okay.
You're in alignment.
So like you're on the right path.
Yeah. And sometimes you get moments like that. And other times, like, for example, one of my favorite ones is like finding feathers. So depending on what you're thinking about and you see a feather on the ground, like that could be validating or protection, or it depends what you're thinking. Every time you see a sign, ask yourself, what are you thinking the moment that you saw that? If you don't feel confident in the first sign, then ask for 3 signs. This one time I was walking down the hallway and I was about to do, it's the day of my book launch and I had to present for an hour. And I was like, angels, I know you're there, I think. But if you're there with today, well, because I was like, I woke up on the wrong foot. I had horrible dreams. Like, you know, when you just have those dreams where you're like, yes, this is not good. It happens like once every 5 months, but it was like bad dreams. And I woke up like in a weird mood. And I'm like, please, I need you guys to show me that you're here or someone's here to help me. And if you're here, I would just like ask to see a rose at some point. And as I said that, I walked past a store and there was a bouquet of roses, like this big.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was looking at them like, am I crazy? And I thought to myself, maybe I subconsciously saw them and knew to ask this question. So as I was walking the store to the left, and I didn't know this area of Milan. I was like going to a different place. It said Contigo. Like the store was called Contigo, which means with you. And I was like, thank you so much. Got it. But besides silly little moments that can feel, but if they feel special to you and the timing is, one day I was just walking down the street and I was like, had ended a relationship I wasn't happy with. But I also was like, maybe I shouldn't be so picky and all of those things that we process after we make a decision. And a truck drove by and it said, a new partner is on the way.
Stop. That's crazy. That's funny.
The more you kind of are open to it and receptive, the more you can understand. And then there are days where there's no signs. Like the sign is take a nap.
Sure.
Get back in your body. Like figure it out.
Yeah.
Normally, you'll wake up better tomorrow. Like give yourself some time off. And so it's about recognizing what we eat. Sometimes they're pretty...
Yeah, that's pretty clear. That last one is definitely very clear. That's so funny.
I was in Milan and it was in English and I was like, ooh.
Yeah. Okay, so another thing that you mentioned was this energy healer, right? So I think that's very interesting and very cool. And I do think it's something that more and more people are gravitating towards, right? And I think like a good segue into that whole realm, and I'm not saying this because I am one, but is like yoga, right? Like that might be the first intro someone has into like how do you find that energy within yourself, the chakras and all of that. So I'm curious to know like how did you find this energy healer? Like how did they come to you? And what does that mean? What does energy healing mean in this context, I guess, with that person and for you?
Sure. So yoga is definitely a way in. It's a good appetizer. Many people love yoga. I like yoga, but I don't practice very often. This particular woman, it was very obvious, also a sign. So I don't know how familiar or how okay your audience is with talking about psychedelics.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was at a peyote ceremony, and prior to a ceremony, usually you would have an intention, which gives you like a newspaper headline for what's about to happen because so many things go on. It's good to have an intention. And my intention that night, which was suggested to me by one of the frequency healers there, was to learn how to understand my own soul's voice, to learn how to basically effectively what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I had a beautiful evening. It was a great ceremony. but I didn't get an answer to that. A lot of other things opened up, but this answer did not come to me. And then in the following morning, we were all at breakfast and I had been just sitting somewhere and this woman came up to me and she goes, "Hi, do you want me to help you find out how you could talk to your own soul?" And I was like, "That's exactly why I'm here. So please do." Like right now.
And that's so funny.
And so again, another thing. And so that's how it started in this particular case. And she transferred a lot of knowledge to me. And then, of course, I went down my journey. We're all different. So we're all from different constellations and spirits. And like we have our own essence. So we bring different healing and frequencies through everything. But essentially, I really enjoyed this style of coaching because it involved energy work. So understanding dimensions, understanding clairvoyance, etc. Combined with NPL, neuro-linguistic NLP.
Yes.
There was NLP strategies. So that was good for reprogramming and understanding the patterns that were in the way. So in synergy together, they worked really well. And then it was just physical action. So sometimes people are just blocked from the beginning. They can't get the spark going. And then once you show them who they can be, then they get out. So in this case, it happened for me. I do this for others. And it's like, "Oh, you want to start this business? Let me make you a website template so you see yourself online and you understand what it looks like." And then suddenly it clicks. Or, "Oh, you want a job? Let me make you like an intro PDF." And then we work on putting together like the action steps. And then whatever blocks come up, we address them, we clear them, we fill them in with better things. And it's a continuous journey and cycle. But the thing is, the more you learn how to do this, the more you understand how to continue to support yourself in this way. And then it becomes really empowering.
Yeah. What are so when you're working with people doing this, what are like the most common blocks that tend to come up? Or are they all different depending on the person? Or because I feel like there might be some, just because we're all humans and we're all in this society and in this world, there might be some that are kind of like more common than others, but I could be wrong.
No, of course. So, well, one of the biggest ones is many people fear the right to exist. So that's just a very fundamental situation. And it happens like on a soul story level, it happens and then it manifests in life. So sometimes it can show in different ways, like when people end up putting themselves in circumstances where they're harmed, or even when an accident happens, or when a person is prone to having lots of car, like this is all like they need to feel like they have a right to exist in this world. I think maybe 25% of people would have that a little bit, or it can show up as like imposter syndrome. We can call it that. That's a little bit more trendy. And financial blocks. So understanding what patterns have taken place in your ancestry line, as well as your current family constellation, and understanding what exact healings are being triggered, and then basically surgically going in and reprogramming those things. So there's different ways that you can understand that. And then there's just some beautiful techniques that you can, that like really shift, because when you shift your alignment, things just come together. Like following some of these exercises, it's like the phone blows up. You suddenly have 5 messages of everything you need to resolve are done. And so I would say financial blocks are really big. The right to exist, victim mindset, which is very difficult because at that point, it's really hard to help someone who doesn't know they can help themselves. It's usually better to start with someone who it's the only way to start with someone who's willing to take responsibility, which is fantastic because that is the way. But it comes up in so many different flavors, and some people have something with control. So needing to control everything, which is very related to perfectionism, which is very much related to how someone was raised. So it's about exposing. So once you have an understanding of something, it already clears up half of the lesson. And then you kind of neutralize that. And then when it doesn't trigger you anymore, when you don't feel that aspect is happening as much, then it's done. So
yeah, I would be interested to talk about the financial one, because I think that is kind of tied to what we were talking about just with how you came into this, right? So you were in corporate and we talked about how you don't have to just like jump out and not be financially secure. But I think that is one thing that holds a lot of people back from actually going after something that they're interested in, and that they might even think like, that's the thing I'm supposed to do, but I can't make money at it. So why even bother, right? So if that's a financial, because I find that a lot with certain clients, especially in a more artistic kind of industry or with an artistic interest. So I guess, how would you deal with that? How would you approach a financial block of like, I know what I kind of want to do, but I just don't know if I could ever make money doing it. Because that's something that I hear a lot. It would be great to have, your input on that.
Well, the world is abundant, but sometimes the issue is that people feel like there isn't enough for them, or that where is this going to go? And already someone who starts off that way, which I have clients that have started off that way, and it's like, okay, it has to do a little bit with value of themselves too, because if you feel that buying a cell phone for $1,500 is okay, but spending $1,500 on your own personal development and betting on yourself is not, then that might mean that you don't value yourself as much as you value a cell phone.
Sure.
And I will say, it's in my book as well, I spent $9,000 on this development for 3 months. That was a lot of money for me. And within a few weeks, I got 11,000 euros in my account from like an unknown source. Like not an unknown, I just wasn't expecting it. It was something that happens only in Italy when you leave your job. They give you like a prorated
severance kind of thing.
Yeah, but I'd seen in the US, if you quit, you do not get that. So I was really shocked and astonished, but I had to say yes before that happened. So good to be prudent, but it's also good to trust, because when you jump, you fall in a bed of feathers. You really do. Like things come up. Just stay pure and stay in your element. So what was I saying? So basically, there's a little bit of a value situation. There's a little bit of a misunderstanding. It's about aligning also to a mentality of abundance. So a really simple example I can give you is that often people who might feel this way are also like a little bit envious or jealous or resentful of others who have made it because they already, or they want to be that, but something is blocking, right?
Yes.
And so to these individuals, I might say, the air in the universe, like the oxygen that we breathe, do you get upset if someone else is breathing a lot? Like, does that make you upset? Like, we all have access. That's the same with the energy of money. Like, we all could potentially access it. So just because I'm breathing really well, like you could do the same. And
like, I'm not taking air from you, right? I'm not taking it from your lungs out of you and depleting you.
Exactly. So in the same way that this is happening, you have to trust. And if you're not ready to trust, if you're not ready to bet on yourself, then that's okay.
It's such a new construct, right? Like careers and money and salary. It's like in the terms of like the universe and energy and astrology, all of that. It's a very new concept, right?
Yeah, like things of value. Exactly. So there are things that every time it's like the scariest thing is it's always an inner journey. So the scariest part is confronting yourself. So what is it about this number that feels too much for you? Do you not think that if you did all the things that you know how to do, which you've proven to yourself that you can do over time, that you wouldn't be able to make this back? And if not, then why? Is it because you don't value yourself? Is it because you're afraid of failure? Is it because you've been raised with perfection? Like, is it because, I mean, the best things in life come from what is it called? The path of most resistance will lead you to the path of least resistance.
Sure.
Always choosing least resistance, which is whatever you might feel that it is, which is not stepping outside of your box. For the rest of your life, that's cool. If you like, that's perfect. If you want to push yourself and expand and grow and make an investment and see where this magic might lead you, because we all are so incredible with such unique gifts and talent, then okay, you might have to spend a little bit of money, but that's just, it's like you putting a stamp on what you're asking for universe. And money is a great way to like formalize that intention that you have, and investing in yourself is the best way.
Yeah. It's so funny. While you were talking, I was just thinking, I don't even remember where I read this. It might have been on Instagram and somebody posted it, but this couple was looking at a house, right? And they loved this house. It had nothing. They were on like vacation somewhere. I don't remember the whole story, but it wasn't in their town. Like they had no reason to ever want to like actually live there, right? But they loved it. And they were like, would be so idyllic, like to live here with their family and everything. And they ended up, the woman had remembered that her dad did this back when she was a little kid, and he did it on the house that she grew up in. So he had put a quarter on the stairs, like going up like to the porch of the front house, right? Front of the house. And they ended up, that's where she grew up, in that house. And she was like, let's just do that. So the husband and wife, they like climbed over the fence and like scurried up to the back porch of this random house that they were like, this is so beautiful. It's not even for sale, but they were just like enamored with this house for some reason. And they put, I think, a penny or a quarter, just a coin, like actual currency on the back porch, like they hid it somewhere. And within that year, it randomly went up for sale. They ended up buying it and they ended up like moving there and redoing it. It's like this gorgeous, very idyllic house in the countryside. And they have their kids there. And it's basically her reason for telling this whole story was you just have to tell the universe, like put a little bit of a down payment towards it, right? Towards whatever it is. So the universe is like, okay, got it. You invested a little bit of money there and we see it. And yes, it will be yours. Like you just have to make it known basically and start the exchange, right? That exchange of currency. And that's all I was just thinking of that as you were saying that. And I just think it's really cool. And I think it's something that is very, just everything that we're talking about. I think it can be very kind of put aside and looked over, especially if you're going to work to a cubicle every day and you're just trudging along or you're like in and out of meetings. It's hard to kind of keep this like in the forefront of your mind, right? So how do people do that? How can people do that if they're not totally unhappy with their jobs, but they're just kind of in the trenches like all day, right? And if you have a family, then you come home and you're in the family. It's just kind of hard to keep that lightness, I guess I would say, as you're dealing with like the minutia of the day. I don't know. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, and of course. I mean, and that sounds like also like disconnection, because when you are around so many other people and their energies and their stories and everybody's goals that could be differing, and especially when you're going meeting to meeting, I mean, I've been there, you're really just in the moment executing, but you're not connecting with yourself necessarily. But you can. And in fact, that's much better to live centered within yourself, with your energy in yourself and not scattered around everybody else's needs. So over time, through practice, you're able to do that with meditation, breath work, any type of connection to self, ceremonies, anything that gives you like a boost and like some kind of wisdom and realization that you have yourself. And there's many ways to confront that. My new book, which is called...
I wanted to ask you about your new book. Yes.
I just published it last week on...
Congrats. Yay!
And it's a 2-hour read and it's called Desperado. And it's called Desperado, a little book to support you through harder times. And 12 different states of desperation that we might have. So overwhelm, anxiety, like being afraid, clearing patterns, anything that just a Crash 101 course on like 12 different ways that we might not feel good, and talk through them. So using the mind. And then at the end, there's a guided meditation, which I personally recorded 15 guided meditations. They're available for free for anyone who wants to just go to the meditations and not buy the book. But I feel that it's important if someone buys the book, like it's hard to read them and also do them. So it's better to also receive them audibly.
Sure.
So the whole idea is, and each meditation is about 5 minutes long, and they don't require sleeping or lying down. You can lie down, they feel great, but you can do them in the office. You can do one of these 5-minute like little activations or grounding exercises or like getting your chi energy back in the office. That's one thing that comes to mind personally that I might suggest. But just grounding, here's a really cool one I can show. It's video, right? For people that are watching.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is pretty cool. If you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed at your desk, you take your front hand and you touch your forehead like this. And then you take like 2 fingers and go to the curve behind your skull. So just hold it.
So if you're not watching, we're laying our hand on our forehead, like you're touching for a fever almost. And then right where that little nubbin is in your lower back head.
Yeah, just doing this. And so taking a deep breath, imagining all the good energy coming through the front of your forehead and breathing that in. And then as you breathe out, anything you don't want to take in this next moment comes out the back.
Ooh, I like this.
You can do that like 3 times. And it can just reset you for if you have in between meetings and you're super stressed and you think you don't have time. You have time for if you do it in the bathroom. You have time.
I was going to say bathroom stall. That's like peak place for this.
If you don't want to be seen at your cubicle. So this is just a really quick way to ground yourself. I mean, there's other ones that take a little more time that I am happy to share with you. But this one is the best one. I mean, another one is like
the steeple fingers.
And you can, so holding your index fingers together and your thumbs against each other. and just waiting for the pulse to join between fingers.
Oh, cool.
And just breathing in and out into it and reconnecting and imagining the energy that's forming between your fingers. Like kind of that carrying out like a ball of electricity and then distributing through your body and staying inside of you. And sometimes like if you feel that energies around you are getting overwhelming because you never know who's going through a divorce in your leadership team.
Right.
If you feel that you're in a particularly like subjective, not fun situation and you're on the receiving end and you can't really get out of it, just imagine you're in a pyramid, you're in a holographic pyramid, and whatever this person is saying is not happening to you, or in a dome or whatever. You can just imagine it. And then when you imagine it, your subconscious receives that and your subconscious is like, okay, we're protected. You believe you're protected. Maximum placebo effect. I mean, it is what it is. Who knows what's going on dimensionally, but it does help. So these are little tools and tricks.
Yeah, I think those are all great. I love that one. Someone also showed me the one where you you press your index and thumb together and you inhale and then you hold your breath. So you take a big inhale, and as you inhale and hold that breath, you press them closer, harder and harder together. And then when you can't hold your breath anymore, as you exhale, you just let it go in one big exhale. So it's it's like a somatic thing. Yeah. It's
that's
almost
really
similar to the clenching the fists and letting them go. But I think when you have your index finger and your thumb together, you really feel that pulse. That's why I like that mudra one too, because the pulse is really evident. This was so awesome. I have so many more questions for you. I could talk to you all day about this stuff. I think it's so interesting and so cool. I do want to ask one more question. And I know you said this is a whole different conversation, but when you were talking about the kinesiology of it and how you feel things resonating in your body, can you maybe just do a elevator description of what that might feel like? And I know it's probably different for everybody depending on your anatomy and your, energetic makeup and all of that. But can you maybe share an example or a moment that happened for you?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite simple. So you can figure out there's different ways that you can connect through your body to find out a simple yes or no response. The important thing is always to ask for the self and not others, because that's not important to know about others. The answer will never be right. So it's tempting to say oh, does my boss hate me? Well, that answer is going to be subjective to you. But what you might want to do is ask is there a purpose for me to be in this job? Is there a purpose for me to be doing this project, or is there a purpose for me to speak up in this particular case, or am I blindsided by this situation somehow? So all yes or no questions that help you kind of get down to where you're trying to go. And the way you can do it is, for those who are more open-minded, you can buy a pendule, so a pendulum, and you can pendle, which is maybe not so work-friendly looking. Could look a little
weird. It's just basically a crystal that hangs down from a little chain, and it swings, and you don't swing it. You don't manipulate it in any way. It just kind of will start to go in circles, counterclockwise or clockwise, depending on the energy. So if people are what is a pendulum?
Yeah.
It's not a big grandfather clock.
Well, if anybody wants to write to me, I have a guide on that too, how to use
Okay, cool.
But I would say the other thing is we can use our bodies, right? So we hold index finger and thumb in within the other index finger. I don't know how to say that over the
Yeah.
audio.
So if you make a circle with your index finger and thumb, so just touch your index finger and thumb together. And then with the other index finger and thumb, go through that circle and press your index finger and thumb together.
And link them.
And leave them. Okay.
Exactly. And now we want a couple of things. First, before we start, we need to be in a state of open mind, open heart, which means we cannot be in favor. We cannot be asking with an answer that we shouldn't influence it with what we want, right? We need to be okay with yes and no. So it has to be super zero gravity neutrality. And sometimes we're not neutral, and that answer cannot be trusted. But sometimes we are. If we're really I don't know, I don't have an opinion on, I need an opinion and I don't, okay. So that's important. And then first you want to show you the differences as you have your fingers this way.
Okay.
I would like to ask for you to imagine something that makes you really happy, like a memory or a future wish or anything that makes you so, so happy.
In present time or in future?
Could be anything. Any vision that makes you super excited and happy about life and just like a strong yes.
Okay.
Okay. And now look at my hands as you have your hands together. Imagine the situation. And now think about yes. And then pull them apart. Try to pull them apart.
Okay.
See how there's resistance a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now think about something that is not so fun. Something that's like really unpleasant. Like, I don't know, like too many taxes that you didn't expect that you have to pay suddenly.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Good example.
Try not to think about any tragedies here. We don't need to clear up. If anybody thought about something tragic, make it clear. Okay. So now we're thinking about that. And so now think about the word no and try to like unlock your hand, like try to pull your hands apart quickly.
Okay.
So now think about no. Yes.
Okay.
No.
Weird.
So the more you practice, and it's like, okay, did I have salmon for breakfast? No. But you have to be able to understand that answer before you've logically interpreted giving the question, if this makes any sense. Because the minute you start focusing too much on the question, the magic poof goes away. Another easy way to do it is with your body, standing up and then asking a question. If your body naturally leans forward, that's a yes. Leans backwards, that's a no. And you can do that anywhere. I've done that shopping. Should I buy this dress?
Oh my gosh.
Is it too expensive? Yes. But like, do I want it? These are some ways, and only you know the integrity of your own answer. But as you get better, and you can always, in the beginning, I had to ask other people. I would be like, there's a way that if you and I wanted to do a session like this, I would be able to get your permission for that time to connect with your responses. And then I could neutrally what your soul is trying to communicate to you. So you know when you're in neutrality or when you're not in neutrality.
Cool. So cool. Okay. So if you need more of this, which I know you do if you're listening, if you've listened this far, you need more of this in your life. So you can check out Alessandra's book, A New Banana, Unpeel Yourself and Elevate Your Relationships, which is on Amazon, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And Spotify. Cool. And Desperado, her new book that just came out recently. And we are going to include everything in our show notes. So her website and all of the things if you want to book a session with her and go into this a little bit more in detail. Alessandra, is there anything else that you have coming up that you wanted to mention? Is there an Instagram handle that you have or anything social stuff that you want people to follow?
That would be great. So many things are happening. And so if anybody wants to follow along, you can definitely follow me on Instagram at holy_shiver. So holy shiver. And I do a newsletter every 2 to 3 weeks. It's very non-invasive. It just kind of includes like my latest insights. And if anybody's curious to stay in touch that way, there's also updates in the bottom that talk about new things that are coming. So
cool. Well, thank you so much. And please check out Alessandra's books and her website and her Instagram. And thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Resume Well, where we explore the intersection of wellness, woo, and work. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends, family, and coworkers. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page and on LinkedIn either at Courtney Page or at Resume Recruiting and Development. Join us next week, and in the meantime, resume well in everything you do.